back. This is one of a lot of favorite students. We all do. We have a lot of, in fact, most of you probably will be someday. Mike was an awesome student. You graduated what year?
Multiple years. So I graduated in 2007 and then again in 2012.
Yeah. And I guess I don't mind telling a certain story. I mean, Mike, when he was here, you were telling me that he was in the education program. He wanted to teach physics and everything. And I thought Mike had really special talents, like for everything. You name it. Mathematics, he was great at it. Physics, good intuition and all of that. And I wasn't sure that being a teacher was what we should do. And Mike told me, no, this is really what I wanted to do. And I always remember that because he really impressed me later on and everything. I think it's great when our young people, like high school students and stuff, are taught by the right kind of people. And Mike convinced me always that he was the right kind of person. And we're all very proud of him. Like, I just wanted to say that he was really, let's just say, a really strong student in everything. But I remember, because I teach electronics, I'm going to tell them about your project. A lot of you probably know, and some of you I think are even have done and are in my class. I teach a 2-semester electronics class. And the second semester is really project focused. I teach person, maybe a group of a couple people, try to pick something clever, and we spend the whole semester trying to make it happen. And Mike conceived of a really clever idea, and I didn't know if he could succeed, but he did. And the idea was to make a lock where you would sing tones, particular tones, to a microphone. And the circuit would detect what tones it was. And the lock would only open if you were singing 5 tones that you would pre-program in a certain order. Now, Mike is a singer, in addition to everything else. He's an accomplished musician and a singer. And if I understand, you have perfect pitch, right?
Relative pitch.
He's good.
So,
he
decent.
can tell, I can't do that. Hear a note and tell you, oh, it's a, whatever. He can do that, and he can also sing it. So Mike made it was a tour de force, I think, circuitry, a lock that you could sing to it, and it would open just the right way. It worked. And to make it even cooler, the way that he set it up was he made a PVC pipe that was about, I don't know, pretty tall, I think, and there was a pulley on top. Instead of opening a door, it was a gimmick. If you would properly open the lock, it would activate this pulley and it would pull up, I don't know, what is it, $1 bill or a $5 bill or.
I was in college, so probably a $1 bill.
Some money. So, so in short, not only was Mike a good student, he was also a great person, a good colleague, and a lot of fun, as you can tell from the project. And so now he has a career as a teacher of sorts, and I guess we'll learn about it. Now, I should stop talking, so I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. We will slideshow. Perfect. Thank you, Mike, for the introduction. I actually think it's really funny because I do remember having the conversations with you about whether or not teaching was something that I wanted to pursue. And I think, and I'm going to talk about it here in this presentation, that if you had had that conversation with me a year prior, 5 years prior, 10 years prior, I was adamantly against getting into the field of education. Even though I had a lot of people in my ear saying, this is something that you'd be really good at, and you'd be a natural at. And it took me a while, I think, to embrace that idea and then run with it. And so I'm really happy that I did. And we'll talk a little bit about that here today. I'm really going to talk to you about 3 different levels of teaching that I've had the opportunity to experience in my 10-year professional career, and kind of how I got there and where I plan to go in the future. So, there we go. Hopeful takeaways from this. When I talked with Hugh about giving this presentation, and I talked with him about some of the other folks that have come in before me giving this presentation, I think I might be the first education major. That's true. Yeah, and so I tried to frame what I'm going to be talking for the next 45 minutes to you in the light of being beneficial for teachers and being beneficial for people that have no desire to get into education. And so really, the 2 big takeaways that I think I want you to take from this conversation, and these are things that I've sort of adopted in my own life over the last 5 years, maybe in particular. They've shaped my viewpoints on life, my viewpoints on education, my viewpoints on relationships with friends and family. First and foremost, time is one of your most valuable commodities. Whatever you choose to do with that time, it should be engaging, meaningful, and with purpose. I kind of like to joke that I only do 2 things in my life. I do things that I have to do, and I do things that I want to do. If I don't have to do it, and I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. And when I kind of came to that viewpoint, it's like the clouds parted. If I would have a negative mindset about something that I was doing, I'd stop and ask myself, do I have to do this? Do I have to get up to work, get up every day and go to work? Yeah, I kind of have to. I have a family, I have a home, I have bills. Do I have to drive down to Oneonta to give a presentation to people I don't know? No, I don't have to, but I chose to do that. I want to do that. So when you think about things that way and how you use your time as your most valuable commodity, it's really helpful. Second, regardless of your career path or your life choice, human interaction, how you treat other people is key. It's so important. And people, they need to be heard, valued, and validated in order to have a strong relationship with you, in order to make a connection. So these are going to be the 2 things that kind of overarching themes of this talk that I'm going to hit on. So let's get into some of my own, my personal background. So my educational background, I graduated from a small little high school, Mohawk, New York, which is about an hour and a half away from here, north, in 2004. And then I went on a tear of just collecting degrees. I have a bachelor's of arts in music industry from SUNY Oneonta. So I majored in the music industry here, and I graduated in 2007. Then I came back to school here and graduated in 2012 with degrees in physics and adolescent education. And then I later went on to get my master's of science in mathematical sciences from the University of West Florida, where I earned that degree in 2015. For New York State certifications, I'm certified in physics, general science, mathematics, and then computer science-ish, but there is no official certification for high school teachers in computer science right now. It's in the pipeline, and when it comes up, I will be qualified for that certification, so that's something that I will most certainly pick up. So my professional experience, I mentioned that this talk is really about my experience teaching at 3 different levels. So what are those 3 levels? First, I've been a high school teacher for about 10 years at 2 school districts, a small little school district where I started in New York Mills, New York, in the greater Utica area, very small school district. It graduates maybe 30 kids a year, 40 kids a year. So pretty, the mills, pretty small. And just recently, last year, I took a new job at Whitesboro, New York, a much bigger school district, which graduates, I think maybe like 300 to 400 students per year. In that time, I've taught a variety of classes. So I've taught 7th grade life science, 8th grade physical science, applied physics, conceptual non-regent science, algebra, physics, earth science, introduction to computer science, AP computer science, and I've done independent studies with students in video game design and cybersecurity. When you're a teacher at a high school, especially a small high school, you have to wear many hats. So I've had to teach a lot of different types of subjects, and you have to be involved outside of just the classroom. I was the advisor to the National Honor Society. I ran an after-school technology and computer club. I oversaw science competitions through the Griffiths Air Force Base, which is an Air Force base in Rome. They have yearly science competitions. I'm also a New York State Master Teacher, which is an organization that's statewide, but we have a chapter based right here. Dr. Paul French is a part of that, and Dr. Paul Bischoff from the Education Department is also a big part of that. So that's my high school experience. I was an adjunct college lecturer for 5 years at SUNY Poly in Utica in their math department, teaching a section of college algebra. I really enjoyed that. It was a ton of fun, but balancing a full-time high school job and then a part-time adjuncting job with little kids at home just became too much, and I had to give that up. And then lastly, just recently, I've become a professional online course instructor, I'll call it, where I've been creating my own courses and selling them online on various platforms. Raise your hand if you've heard of Udemy or Udacity. Okay, so I've been selling courses on these platforms. Pact is another platform that I'm on. And in this realm, I really kind of explored computer science. So I have courses on Python fundamentals, video game design with Python, desktop application design, Android development with a language called Kotlin, Linux fundamentals, networks and network scanning. And then I just recently made a course on analog electronics, which was a lot of fun to sort of make. And so we'll talk about that coming up. So I have a lot of different students, okay? And I have students at all different ages. I got students, I had middle school students, I had high school students, I had college students, and then I have students that are on my online learning platforms that vary, in age all the way to 60, 70, 80. So, you kind of always have to reflect, how do my students view me? Oh, this is how they view me, because these are pictures and artworks that my students have drawn for me. I like to think that they think I look maybe normal, but cool. I don't know how you interpret that. But it's important to reflect not only how you think you're doing, but also the people that you're essentially serving, how they think you're doing. Now, how do I think I view myself sometimes as an educator? It's probably more like this. I feel like I'm losing my mind, or I'm just yelling all the time. And it's this constant balance, I think, and really this goes beyond teaching. I think in just any profession, it's a constant balance between doing what you have to do, doing what you want to do, doing what is easy for you and natural for you, and then doing what is not easy for you and maybe unnatural. I'm trying to combine all of that together. So let's do some reflection here. Now you know a little bit about me from my professional background. I want to get a little bit from you, and then I'm going to go into a personal background on this. For you folks that are here, what are your majors? Raise your hand if you're a physics major. Awesome. It's always learning, right? Always learning. So just pure physics. Any physics ed majors? Okay, so you folks are all physics majors. Perfect. Seniors? Anyone seniors? Juniors? And then freshmen, sophomores? Okay, perfect. Seniors, you're a senior, right? What's your name? Shabam. What's one memorable college experience you've had being a senior, now that you've been here for 4 years?
Honestly, not many, because 2 years I lost to COVID. I was online. But I would say probably just with these guys spending a lot of time.
Yeah, right. I'm glad you said that, right? First off, COVID, I think, really put a damper on the educational experience for a lot of folks at all levels. And then you said it right there, just spending time with these folks, right? Your friends, your professors, your colleagues. All right. Let me ask you this question. What do you think makes a good educator? And I like using the word educator because it could be a teacher, it could be a professor, it could be a mentor, any of these things, a coach. What do you think? Someone tell me. What do you think?
Can you connect with the person?
Yeah, that's great, right? You got to be able to connect with the person. What else makes a good educator?
One who provides engaging content.
Engaging content.
Someone is passionate about what they teach.
Passionate about what they teach. One more.
Someone who kind of shared at one point the same goals that you might have.
Perfect. So you have common goals, right? I love it. And I want you to just think about this one in your head. 10 years from now, what do you think you're going to remember about your college experience? Because that's kind of where I am. I graduated in 2012 from here with physics. So 10 years out, what do I currently remember about my college experience? Because I asked these exact same questions to my juniors and seniors that I have in high school teaching them physics. I polled them. I said, hey guys, I have to give a presentation at my old college. I really want to get a feel for what you think education is before I go off on a platform and tell folks, this is what education is. And their answers were exactly what I thought it was going to be. And they kind of tie in here. So I asked 40 students, and of these 40 students, only 18% of the students mentioned in some form that a good teacher had mastery knowledge of their content. To them, it wasn't that important. And I got pretty good math. I've got excellent mastery at high school level physics. All right, I'll say that. It doesn't matter. Because I think a lot of people could have this level of understanding. That's what a good teacher is. What separates someone into an excellent teacher, 82% of them didn't explicitly say, you got to know what you're teaching. But they did say the following: you're committed to student success and improvement, willing to apply feedback and adapt even if it means they're admitting they've made mistakes, willing to invest time into their students, willing to understand that things that the student go through might affect performance in class, someone who has a love for the subject and for the students, and someone who is an interactive and passionate. These are all the same things that you folks are talking about. I really like this one right here. This one is one that can relate to students and interact with them naturally, acting almost as if their superiority over the students should only be used sparingly when it must, and otherwise treats the students as equals. Of course, the students know I'm smarter than them. I have the authority over them. I don't need to show that all the time because it doesn't create a good environment for learning. Not a single student, when I asked them, what are you going to remember 10 years from now? And you see me like in the grocery store, not a single student said that they're going to remember the lesson that I taught them or the content that I taught them. And I have some students that are majoring in physics. They're going to go to college and major in physics. And none of them are saying how awesome it was when you played the electric guitar and you talked about the electromagnetic radiation and oscillating electric and magnetic fields of the guitar pickup. None of them are going to say that. It's crazy. And it's like you, what are you going to remember? You're going to remember the time with people and the connections that you made. And I think good educators, they teach content. Great educators teach content and then recognize that that content is really a vehicle for building relationships and then teaching all of that other stuff that you have to learn. And so I know none of you are going in education. So how do you apply this to the realm of maybe like industry? Forget teaching. So remove what do you think makes a good educator and ask yourself what makes a good person, employee, and a boss. These are the exact same answers. I just replaced the word student or class with self, employee. Is committed to self-success and improvement. Is willing to invest time into themselves and others. Is willing to understand the things they go through might affect their performance in life. Is someone who has a love for what they're doing, love for who they're with, and someone who's interactive and passionate. It's the same exact skill set that students think make an excellent educator that is going to make an excellent employee, person, boss in industry. These things, see, I think the expectation is in life is that whatever role you take, you're going to be able to perform it because you got that role. But that's kind of like the bare minimum, you know, and I don't know about you, but I don't like meeting the bare minimum. I want to go above that. And so what, you know, makes you exceptional or separates you is the same in pretty much any field. It's a universal trait. So let's talk about a little bit about my personal background. So you know my professional background. I want to tell you, how did I get here? Because I know, as Mike had said, he kind of said, maybe this is right for you. And I said, no, this is right. And I did not always think that. So I come from a lineage of teachers, a long line. My grandmother was a teacher. She taught English and French. My mother's a teacher. She taught English. My dad was a teacher eventually. He taught computer science, which I think is crazy because he became a teacher in the 80s. And I don't know who was teaching computer science in the 80s and 90s. My aunt was a teacher. My cousin was a teacher. My sister was a teacher. And then there was me. And so if you look here, just think, you folks that are your physics majors, right? Think about your parents. If your parents and your grandparents, they tell you, do something. This is a good idea. What do you instinctively want to do? The opposite, exactly. And so all of these people are in my ear saying, oh, the teacher, be a good teacher. And I said, no, I don't want to be a teacher. This is not me. But you emulate what you see. And sometimes things just work out. And so I'm going to share a story. This is, thankfully, you know, I was trying to get pictures for this presentation. Social media is great. I was going on to other people's sites, finding pages, finding pictures of me, downloading them. This is a picture of me, maybe from like a 3rd or 4th grade class. That's me there in the yellow, in the back, thinking that, you know, bunny ears is cool. I still think they're kind of cool. I'm not going to lie. But I remember being a 5th grade student. And in 5th grade, I had to give a lesson on presenting something to the class. And so I presented, I was going to how to make this little toy where you had a button and you threaded string through the button, and then you twirled the string and you could pull the string and the button would spin. Little toy. So I prepped the lesson and I went in and right now I think of smart friends. When I was in 5th grade, I clearly did not have smart friends because none of my friends could figure it out. They were all struggling, and here I was like a 5th grader in the front of the room thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to fail this presentation because nobody is accomplishing the task that I needed them to accomplish. And so hands are going up and I'm walking over here, and hands are going up, I'm walking over there, and I'm walking over, I'm helping each person one-on-one. And I'm not even giving my presentation. And I'm, as a 5th grader, you know, oh crap, I'm going to fail this. And the teacher even said, the guy's name was Mr. Carla. He goes, Mike, I want to see you after class. Shaking. Calls me over and he goes, I just want you to know that you did an excellent job. And he goes, I think you'd make a great teacher. And I remember this quarter day, I go, what do you mean I did an excellent job? I didn't even give the presentation. Nobody got it ready. He goes, the patience you showed in walking around and making sure that every person was a part of your lesson. That's what teaching. And I remember that. That stuck with me. So, the thing I think is really interesting is you don't know what is important and what is impactful to you until later on, when those things have had time to impact you and you have the time to reflect on them. That's one of those things that in the moment, I was like, I don't want to be a teacher. All of my family are teachers. I want to be different. But it stuck with me. It stuck with me. Another thing that stuck with me was my dad. So there's my dad, and that's me about 35 years ago. I still look just as cute, I'd like to say. So, you emulate what you see. And so I come from a family of teachers, but my dad, he taught computer science in the 80s and in the 90s. And prior to teaching computer science, he was like an engineer at a company based out of Utica called MDS. He essentially worked on microprocessors in the 80s, writing compiler code for the microprocessor. Those businesses in that area went up, they all moved out west. And the way my dad tells it, he said there were two options: uproot the family, move out west, or stay and try to find another job. So we chose that. Family was in the area. I have two older sisters that were in school. So he stayed. He went and got a degree in education. He went back and did IT for high school and then taught computer science as well. But I always remember growing up, watching my dad kind of messing around with something, tinkering with something, and messing with computers. I remember it. In fact, one of the things I think is most impressive, does anybody know what that is right there? All right, what is that? That is an Atari 2600, exactly. This was like video games back before, PlayStation and Xbox and all these things, and Nintendo, the Atari 2600. And we had an Atari 2600. But the funny thing is, here's a game cartridge for the Atari 2600. You put the cartridge in right there, and the game plays. We had an Atari 2600, and I had probably 1,000 Atari games growing up, but I didn't have a single cartridge because my dad and his friends, they built, and now look at this one. This one is labeled 2004. My dad did this back in the late 80s. He built a reader, and him and his friends would take turns buying these games. They would crack them open, take the chip out, and then flash the chip to another chip and built a card reader. So you just shoved this into the game. In the 80s, my dad was pirating the material before the internet. And I just thought it was normal. If my friends would come over and be like, you guys want to play Atari? You want to play like Pitfall? And they'd be like, sure, where's the case? I'd be like, what do you mean, where's the case? I got this bucket of chips. Let's just pick which one we want. But I remember that. And at the time when I was younger, I was always around it. But you never want to do what your parents are doing. At least I didn't want to. And so I really didn't have much interest in this in the time. And I never really wanted to learn anything from my dad. But it stuck with me. So these things that you don't think are important, later on you found out they are really important. So what was I into? I was definitely into music. I had loved music from a young age. So I took private piano lessons for maybe 10 years. As soon as I could join a band in school, I started playing trumpet in the school band and the marching band. I took private guitar lessons. I taught myself guitar. I was in jazz band. I had multiple personal bands. I sang in school choir and musicals. I can remember growing up in the early 90s, grunge music was a big thing. And MTV, I don't know if that's even still a thing, music television, they actually played music videos. So I remember being like 5 or 6 years old and seeing music videos for Pearl Jam or REM and going, I don't know how to comprehend the feelings I'm feeling, but I really like these feelings. And I was drawn to music. Here I am as like an early 2000s angsty teenager with my guitar. You can tell it's the early 2000s because I'm wearing very baggy cargo pants. I don't know, that was the style back then. And so all throughout high school, music was my thing. It was all I was into. And so when high school was over, the question was, what's next? I think that's like the common question, and it's a really difficult one for, I think, young people. And you folks are going to see it too, even after college. The question is, what's next? So in high school, I was a decent student. I graduated the top 10 in my class. And here's a picture that we found online, and that's me circled there. But just make some observations of this picture of the top 10. Does anyone find anything a little odd about this picture for the top 10 graduating students? There's 12 of us. How on earth does that happen? I know I wasn't like the best, and most driven student.
Base 12.
It's base 12, that's right. It's base 12. So I just think that this is the funniest thing to me, that somehow 12 students were in the graduating top 10 of the class. But that's me right there. So I made the top 10, which was great. But really, I will own up to it. I was kind of a slacker in high school. If it wasn't something I was deeply interested in. And at the time, that was just music. So I was a good enough student to kind of fake through a lot of high school and get A's on things that were easy. And if things were challenging, I avoided them at all costs. So like senior year, I dropped AP English. I remember the AP English teacher handed me a copy of Native Son was the name of the book. And I forget the author, like this thing. And they said, you need to read this over the summer. And I went, nah, I don't think AP English is for me. And so I dropped that class. And then I think I wanted to drop AP Calculus, but my parents were like, no, you can't drop all of your AP classes. So I took it and did a terrible job and failed AP Calculus and got a 1 on the AP exam because I wasn't mature enough as a learner to take that course seriously. If I was interested in something and it came natural, I did it, and I did it exceptionally well, but otherwise I avoided these things. And so at this point, I didn't know how to work, I didn't know how to study, and I didn't really know how to self-improve myself at all. I had a terrible work ethic at this point. But I was really into music, and SUNY Oneonta has a really nice program for music industry. So I enrolled here in 2004, and I started studying music industry, and I loved this time. It was an exceptional time. And if I could go back as an 18-year-old knowing where I'm at now, I would still do this. Because at 18, I would not have been that exceptional student you were just talking about up here in your electronics class. I wasn't mature enough for it. But here, I honed my music abilities in guitar, voice, writing, and recording. And I got to fully explore my creative side, which is a really big part, I think, of who I am. Ironically, at one point while I was here, I had some fear about job prospects, and I thought of maybe switching my major. And I went to academic admissions, and so they didn't want to switch my major. They go, what to? And I said, well, maybe physics, because I always felt like there was a music and physics relationship. And they said, well, you can do it. You're going to have to be in school for another year. And I'm like, oh, no, I can't do that now. I can't waste a year of my life. Fast forward, guess what I did a few years later and spent like 3 years of my life doing? Studying physics. So I guess don't be afraid of change. And if you think the change is going to set you back, there's no timeline. There's no timeline of when you need to graduate or when you need to get your first job or when you need to have to buy your house or any of that stuff. Just do what you think is right. During this time studying music industry, the biggest skill I learned, and I think it's one of the skills that's helped me out the most, is I learned how to form relationships with just about anyone. I got involved in the theater department. There's me up there on stage in a musical. Got to meet a lot of people that way, interact with people. I had a job at a local deli. I don't think the deli exists anymore. It was called Woody's Market on the corner of Ford and Spruce. I don't think it's there anymore, but I would make the best turkey sub you've ever seen. And that was a great opportunity because I had to work with college students, adults. I had to interact and learn how to acclimate myself into that environment. And then, most importantly, right here, I performed music with a lot of my music professors. I think this is something that helped me. I learned at this age how to take the dynamic of the teacher, the student, and make it more equitable. Because those folks that were teaching me classes are also my bandmates. And that was huge for me, to be able to see that kind of relationship and that kind of dynamic. So after I graduated with my music industry degree, I grew up in a small New York town. I went to college in a small New York town here in Oneonta. I kind of felt like I owed it to myself to go see the world before I figured out, or the country at least, what I was going to do with my life. So when I was 20, I packed up a minivan and drove cross country for about 2 months, living out of a minivan with the girl I was dating at the time. And it was fantastic. It was just so much fun. We slept in the minivan. Every maybe 4 or 5 nights, we'd get a campsite where we could shower. We just drove cross country. This is before we had GPS. So we had a big road atlas, and we said, we'd wake up and we go, where are we going today? And we just pick a place and we drive there. And we went all over. We made it all the way to like the northwest corner of Utah before we realized we only had about $100 in our bank accounts each. and we turned around and drove back, so we had money for gas. But I really liked Chicago when we were traveling there, and I always liked the music scene of Chicago. So days after graduating from the music entry program, I got in the car and I drove out to Chicago, and I lived there for a while. And while I was there, I worked a lot of different jobs. I worked in multiple independent theater companies, promoting shows, marketing shows, billing shows. I worked at a catering company. I worked with a temp agency doing data entry. I even played guitar in the subway with my guitar case out and people would throw money in. Surprisingly, that was one of the more lucrative jobs if you went to the right place. But when you're doing this many things, stuff's not working out for you. Right? You have to work that hard to just make it each month. Something's not right. And I kind of realized that. I had this moment where I said, I don't know if I want to keep doing this for the next year, 2 years, 5 years, because at some point I'm going to ask myself, what else is there for me? And I didn't know if there would be doors open. And really, unless you know who you are and what you really want in life, and at the time I did not, a big city is going to eat you up and spit you out. And that's exactly what Chicago did to me. So I moved back home like a dog with its tail between his legs, and I lived in my parents' basement. And that is not a picture of me in my parents' basement, but it's definitely what I felt like, coming back and living in my parents' basement. And this here, I remember clear as day. I was not in a really good place, like mentally, emotionally, feeling defeated. I just remember my dad coming down to the basement and he said, "You don't have to have the answers, but you have to start looking." I thought that's one of those moments that, like, in the moment, I said, okay, yeah, whatever. But looking back, that hit me like a ton of bricks. Because I said, okay, I don't have to have it all figured out, but I got to make a plan to start looking for the answers. And so I think it was maybe a couple of weeks later, I enrolled at a local community college. And I said, okay, I want to have a different skill set than what the music industry degree provided me. And at the time, and I still feel like this is maybe sort of the sentiment, people always say, oh, study science. There's booming career opportunities. So I said, I want to study science. But I didn't know if I had that work ethic, that drive to do it. So I enrolled in Calc 1 because I knew I failed out of Calc 1 and I had a miserable experience with it. And I also enrolled in a general chemistry class because I really didn't like my chemistry class in high school. And I knew I liked physics and earth science and biology, but I didn't like chemistry. And I thought maybe I just had a bad experience with it. It was hard. But I got an A in Calc 1. And I said, hey, maybe I can do this. And I got an A in general chemistry. I said, maybe I can do this. And I thought to myself, which science would I want to go study? And the clear answer was physics. A, because I always remember the physics teachers in school having the most fun. And B, there's a relationship with music there that's really, really evident. So I went back to Suco. I said, hey, I want to come back here. I know people, all of my undergraduate, my gen ed credits are going to come in. So I enrolled back at Suco, majoring in physics with a minor in mathematics. And I really hear, if music industry is my creative side, this was my intellectual side where I really started to develop it. At this point, I still had zero desire to be a teacher. I didn't want to. I wanted to be an electrical engineer. I wanted to go work for Boss or Digitech, and I wanted to design and build guitar effects pedals. That's what I was like, that's my ticket. That's what I'm going to do. So you can see the biggest skill I think I learned during this time, and this was really important. Hopefully you folks have this, is how to work at difficult things. And more importantly, how to find enjoyment out of that struggle. That is so important. That's like what makes resilient, I think, students. It makes resilient employees. It makes resilient people. Stuff's going to be hard and challenging. But if you enjoy working at it, you're set. You're absolutely set. Here's me in the electronics lab, trying to figure out how to make a theremin, which was a monster of a device that was really difficult. I learned a lot doing it. I loved doing it. This is me at a space physics conference. And I think this was maybe 2013 in Boulder, Colorado. I had an opportunity to do a summer internship doing ionospheric space physics.
Is that Baby Gallagher?
That right there? Yeah. That's Dr. Gallagher about 10, 11 years ago. Look at that. You look good. You look good. I knew nothing about ionospheric physics. Absolutely nothing. And this guy right here, Scott Siriano, him and I, we were paired up and we sat in a small room. I don't remember where the room was. And you told us, you said, you have to analyze, your goal is to analyze total electron content in the ionosphere and changes in that electron content and how it might disrupt like GPS satellites and other satellites that are in orbit. Oh, and you've got to use Python to write some code to analyze that. So Scott was like, oh yeah, okay, we can do this. And then the door shuts and I look at Scott and I go, you know anything about the ionosphere? And he goes, no. You know anything about computer programming? And I go, no. So we were like blind, right? But we learned some stuff. And I think this was like one of the first moments where I realized, hey, computer science actually could be really powerful. In knowing it maybe sets you apart from the rest of your peers in the group. So this was a wonderful experience here at SUCO studying physics. And I can't underestimate this notion of me being able to explore my intellectual side. This is a small state school. And in comparison to some of the other schools that are there, this is a small program, but this is a quality program. I will tell you that. If you are willing to put in the work and put in the effort, if you're curious, if you take initiative, there are folks all in this building that will feed that initiative. And that helped me immensely, especially with some of the things that I'm going to talk about that I did in the future. So how did I get to become a teacher then? If you just kept saying, I don't want to teach, I don't want to teach, I don't want to teach. Well, studying physics, I was approached by Paul Bishop from the education department and Paul French from the physics department about a scholarship opportunity called the Noyce Scholarship, which essentially said it was targeted at science majors who I think at the time they thought would be good teachers. I remember them phrasing it to me, we'll pay for both degrees if you dual major in physics and in education, as long as you teach for 4 years afterwards. I went, well, I already got student loans for my music industry degree. Right now I'm paying for 1 physics degree. I can get 2 and you'll pay for it. I said, all right, maybe I'll try this teaching thing. And so I took the Noyce Scholarship, and just like that, I became a physics and adolescent dual major. And I found, hey, I like my education classes. Hey, I really like getting into the classroom. Hey, I really enjoy some of these experiences with the Noyce Scholars of being able to take trips into New York City, get into New York City public school systems, and get into the classroom in front of people. So the biggest skill I learned here during my time as an adolescent ed major was how to let things, I think, organically develop. And both in the classroom and in life. More so, really getting comfortable with just letting go of control. And good educators, they control the room, but they give a lot of freedom as to where I think the learning is going to go. And I learned that here. Watching, these guys kind of lead a class was a good way to learn those skills. So that's me on my first day of work. How great is that? So then I graduated, and in the middle of the year, I got hired as a physics teacher and middle school science teacher at that small school in New York Mills that's graduating about 30 kids per year. And I quickly realized, very quickly, that teacher, and this might be true of any job profession, right? Whatever your title is, the title of the job does not mean the same thing everywhere you go, especially true as a teacher. It's the same title, but it is a vastly different job depending on where you teach and the courses you teach. I teach Regents physics. I get some of the best students that want to be there every single day. Some of my coworkers that teach earth science, Regents earth science, they get everybody. Everybody has to take science. I like to joke that I'm in an ivory tower teaching the best of the best. Also true about where you teach. The district, when I got hired in this district, which was right outside of Utica, I was making more money than my cousin, who was teaching in a rural community about 45 minutes away, who had been teaching for 8 years of experience. It's not all the same job. And really, for a school environment, there's 4 main players: the teachers, the students, the community, and the administration. If all 4 of those are on the same page, it is a wonderful career. If 3 of those are on the same page, it's a pretty darn good job. If only two of them are on the same page, it is a nightmare. And if they are all at each other's throats, it is an impossible job to do and find enjoyment and satisfaction from. And over time, my job at New York Mills, that environment was declining, for sure. It was evident from the moment I walked in the door. Maybe I brought it and maybe I was the reason. But teacher happiness definitely lowered across the board. And as a teacher in New York State, I was certified to teach. And if I wanted to hold my certification, I had to get a master's. And a lot of teachers, I think, go on and get master's degrees in education. It's a logical step. But I saw a lot of teachers that were unhappy and a lot of teachers that were stuck due to years of experience or maybe not knowing what they were going to do. And I felt like if I got my master's degree in education, that didn't open doors for me. It closed a lot of doors and it kind of put me on a very narrow path. One of the things I really value is flexibility and the freedom to kind of choose and do what I want when I want. So I wanted to have opportunities. If I said, I woke up one day and said, man, teaching is not what I want to do anymore. I want to be able to leave and go get another job doing something else. And so I went and ended up getting a master's degree in mathematical sciences. I knew that education, the master's degree wasn't for me. Continuing to study physics would have been difficult because I didn't want to give up my job. I had a taste for money and I liked it. And there are very few like remote or hybrid physics programs, but I found a remote program at the University of West Florida in mathematical sciences, and I enrolled in it. And the biggest skill I learned during this time of working full time and being a master's student was how to manage time and really reserve enough energy for yourself to invest in yourself, both mentally and physically, to try to learn something new. And it was a taxing time. As you can tell by this photo that was taken from my Instagram, on a Thursday night, I looked at it, is a picture of two computers up, my textbook, and a Miller Lite sitting there, which I am really surprised because I hashtag Miller Lite as hashtag math beer. And I'm really surprised that Miller Lite didn't take me up on this marketing opportunity to say, Miller Lite, the beer of mathematicians. They turned it down, I can't believe it. And you can see that I had 5 people like it. So my social media following at this time was very minimal. Although, that first person that liked it right there, she ended up turning by white. So that's pretty important. It's pretty important. So I finished my master's degree, and then it seemed like all things were coming together. So this was in 2015. I got married to my beautiful wife, Alyssa. We bought a house. We got a cat. That's a big deal, definitely. And I got hired to be an adjunct lecturer at SUNY Poly in the math department. And for me, that was a really big deal because I viewed that next level as like an intellectual stepping stone, we'll say. I developed my intellectual side at a college setting. I wanted to teach in that college setting. And so I was really proud of that moment. And everything was wonderful and lasted just like this for a while. And then another big life change came. And so my biggest life change came on my 31st birthday. My first son, Lucas, was born. Luke and I are birthday buddies. We have the same birthday. So that's awesome because as a 3-year-old, my birthday party theme was Batman. As a 34-year-old, my birthday party theme was the Avengers. I mean, so like I'm living the dream right now. And then our second son was born on June 10th, 2020, Simon. So, I got 2 little kids now. And so things got really hectic at home. You can see, here's a picture of me falling asleep, trying to catch a nap between teaching all day at high school, coming home, being a dad for a little bit before I had to go back out and teach college at night. Look who still liked it. First person, my wife. Good advice, get yourself a partner that likes your Instagram posts. Makes you feel good. And look at that, following 48 more people. I'm growing my social media presence. That's pretty good. So with this big life change, that transition into fatherhood was one of the most rewarding and challenging things I've ever done. And it still is to this day. I'm still balancing and pulling myself in different directions because of that. But prior to my second son being born, I decided to give up teaching college. It was just way too much. And in that moment of giving up that thing that I felt I had worked really hard to achieve, I had this really irrational, kind of understandable fear that I was done growing as a person. Like that was it. The person I was at that day, fast forward 25 years, I was gonna be that same exact person. Here I was in college for 10 years, investing in myself, and now I was done. That was a really hard pill for me to swallow. And especially in a career in teaching where the focus is never on me. The focus is never on make yourself better. What can you do? The focus is make these students better. What can they do? It's a really selfless career. And between that and my home life, which is also selfless, investing time into your children, I really didn't feel like there was enough for me and that I was getting lost. And I wasn't being creative, so I wasn't fulfilling that side. And I wasn't being intellectually challenged. So it was kind of a rough transition. But there was a light, and it just turned on for me one day. I was tired of it. And I said, I'm gonna do something about it. There's no time to do anything when you have kids. We'll just say that. But you can find time. If I have 5 minutes here, 20 minutes here, get up a half an hour early. You've got a little bit of time. If you piece that time together, you can do some productive things. So I bought a book. I bought a book called C++ Demystified. It's right here. And I began teaching myself computer science. I read the book. Then I bought another book. I read it. I bought another book and I read it. And I bought another book and I read it. And here's a collection of a bunch of the books that I bought. And somehow in doing this, I gained a hobby that was both a creative outlet because I was creating programs out of nothing, building applications, and an intellectual outlet. And so thankfully, I knew how to work through all of this difficult material. I had the work ethic, the intellectual prowess for it. I knew how to do it on my own. And I was able to do it in small times window that were hard to come by and enjoy it. And I don't think that if I didn't get into skill sets from Oneonta, I wouldn't have been able to do this. Definitely not. And this was a launching point for kind of like a third part of my career. But before we get to that third part of the career, I want to share something that I think is maybe one of the most amazing things I've had the opportunity to experience as a teacher. Around the same time I was doing all this computer science stuff and teaching myself, I had a middle school student, Daniel, that's Daniel right there. He approached me as a middle school student, a little 8th grader, and he said, I want to learn computer science. Oh, cool, that's awesome, I'm learning about that. What do you want to do with it? He goes, I want to be a video game designer. And I went, sure you do, little kid. An 8th grader says they want to be a video game designer. What do they really mean? They want to play video games, right? That's exactly what I mean. So I remember saying to Daniel, okay, here's some stuff. I put some stuff together for him. I gave him some resources. I said, have at it. He went for the summer. He came back one of the first days. He comes to my room. I want to show you what I made. Kid blew me away. He built his own little game. And I said, wow, you're really into this. He goes, yeah, I want to be a video game designer. I said, okay, I'm going to do whatever I can to make that happen for you. You know, I said it's a selfless career. You're always giving to students. You, as a teacher, have to be the one that sets the limits of how much you're going to give. And for that student, I said, I'm going to give you everything I got because you're going to give it back to me 100%. And so we started an after school technology club. Here's the kids wrote computer games, and we had a lunchtime arcade where kids could play against each other. It was a quarter to play, and they would compete for a high score in a game we made. And the winner got a free pizza party lunch that we bought for them. Here they are doing some more coding. We eventually had this whole back table filled with old PCs that we wiped Windows off of and put Linux on. We networked them together, and I taught the students how to hack one computer into another, and we had our own little like ethical hacking competition. I ended up offering an introductory to computer science course here, an AP computer science course, which Daniel got a 5 on the AP computer science exam. And Daniel took a 3-year independent study with me on video game design. Now, my relationships with professors here taught me that it's not student and teacher or teacher and student. It can be like this. That helped me out a lot here working with the student. And eventually, I was not the teacher anymore. He was teaching me stuff. Hey, Paul, how are you? Good. So Daniel's a high school senior now, and he owns his own video game design company. He is the founder of his own video game design company, Newell Studio. He's published multiple small-scale computer games on a website called itch.io, if you've ever heard of it. But he's also published 2 full games to the Steam marketplace and to the Xbox marketplace. The student legally incorporated his own business, was in contact with Xbox, Microsoft, got into a program, and you can go on the Xbox marketplace right now and find that game and buy it for $4.99. And if that is not the coolest stinking thing that a high school student is able to do that, I don't know what else I can tell you. Right now, this is his 2nd game that he's currently working on, Stasis Valley, and I get to work alongside him on these games, which I think is so cool. Even now, he's not my student. He's at New York Mills. I teach at a different school. We do Google Meets once a month where he shows me what he's working on. I ask him questions. I give him feedback. And I get to write all the music for his games. How cool is that? So like, if you buy this game under credits, it's his name first and I'm second, music and score, music and score. So I get to have that creative, side, which is really wonderful. But that's Daniel's thing. That's not my thing, right? I mean, I can sit up here and say how cool it is, but I'm pumping Daniel up. I'm not pumping me up. And as a teacher, you never get to pump yourself up. You're always pumping other kids up. I wanted something that was going to be mine, something that I could say, hey, I made this and I'm proud of this. So I decided to branch out and pursue like an entrepreneurial pursuit. I ended up saying, hey, I have a pretty good understanding of computer science at this point, and I have what I think is a mastery understanding of best educational practices. I'm going to make an online course. So I decided to make my own online course and an ebook at the time on teaching computer science through Python. And here's the dedication of that book. It says, to my beautiful son, Lucas, you're a constant reminder that human beings grow and improve each and every day. You're my motivation to continually improve little by little to be a better human being and a better father. I'll always remember watching my father tinkering away, wondering and learning, trying to create something out of nothing. I hope you remember the same in me. So really, I turned into the guy that was my dad, tinkering with computers, messing around, stealing Atari games from the Atari Corporation. It was me. And I didn't think it meant anything at the time when I saw him do it, but it had a deep impact on me. So let's talk about this. I made a course and I published it to Udemy and I said, hey, I hit the publish button. I go, this is it. I'm gonna be rich. And then nothing happened. Nobody bought the course. I had no students enrolling. And it was really kind of disappointing. I made the course under this brand, The Art of Doing CS, The Art of Doing Computer Science. And I initially had really bad sales because as a starting course, the number of students that were enrolled were 0. The number of reviews I had were 0. And if you're going to buy a course on computer science and you go to Udemy, are you going to buy mine that has 0 students and 0 reviews, or are you going to buy the one that's got lots of students and lots of reviews? Lots of students and lots of reviews. So I worked really hard at essentially promoting this course, giving it away for free to build up social proof that the course was worth taking. And right now, this course alone's got 74,000 students enrolled in it, and I've got an average of 4.4 out of 5 stars with almost 1,000 reviews here, which is awesome. Remember, I started with only 5 people liking my Instagram post, and now I got all these students here. That's crazy. So I kept doing it. I said, hey, this is kind of fun. I'm going to keep learning and keep making these courses and keep bringing what I'm learning into the high school. And that's exactly what I did. So for the past 2 years, this is my hobby now. This is what I like to do in my free time. I learn, I explore different areas of computer science. And every time I do, I bring it into the high school classroom. I share it with kids. We do it in a club, we do it in the class, and then I make a course here and I sell it. So I have 7 full premium courses that I'm selling with 5 free courses that are like just kind of like advertisements. How to design write video games in Python, write graphical user interface or GUI applications with Python. Learning Linux, how to like basically hacking, network scanning, analog electronics. So which was a lot of fun to make. Android application. These are all things that were interesting to me at the time, and I said, what the heck, I'm going to pursue it. My dad always asked me, well, is this course going to make any money? I go, I don't care. I go, this is what I'm interested in at the time. So I'm going to explore it. And I've had really good feedback with this, and I'm really proud of this. And I can say that this is mine. This is a map of where my students are. On Udemy alone, which is only one of the platforms I'm currently selling these things on, I have students from over 190 different countries. Yeah, isn't that nuts? I've taught people in 190 different countries. Look at that map. India, a lot, but North America here, South America, Africa, Europe.
You know the person in Madagascar?
I actually, it's at my house there. No, I don't know him. 190 countries. And if you look here, this is a snapshot that I just took maybe like last week when I was making the presentation. My total enrollment just on this platform is 223,812 students. So I'm almost at 225,000 students. And I'm on other platforms too. So let's just assume that this is my highest platform. I maybe have about 300,000 students that I'm reaching. That's awesome to me. And my average rating, 4.69, 4.7 out of 5 stars. I now have the social proof. When people say, I want to buy a course in computer science, they log in and they say, hey, this is worth taking. And they're buying these courses, which is great for me. Now you might say like, holy moly, that many students. And I think you're selling a course for $24.99. You must be rich. Doesn't work that way. Nothing in education is lucrative, okay? I could give a lot of my courses away for free to build a social proof. I'll tell you this, right now, it is steady income that is a substantial amount of my monthly income. And I really don't have to do much for this. People buy the courses, they ask questions, I answer the questions, and I enjoy it. And it's a hobby. I've also licensed my courses to Pact Publishing, which is based out of the United Kingdom, Arbington, which is based out of Canada. And then I also worked with a company out of Germany called Actomo Learning, and they unfortunately went belly up with COVID. So they kind of fell off the back of the book. But I've also had in-depth conversations about publishing textbooks or books with Pact Publishing, Manning Publishing, or No Starch Press. But I've turned all the offers down at this point because it seems like that is a lot of work. And I don't know if I want to do it. The thing is, with these, I do them when I want to do them. And I like that freedom. And that freedom is really important to say, I want to do this and I'm going to do this. I don't want to feel like I'm forced to do it. If I sign a contract that says I'm going to write a textbook, I have to do that. So I'm just going to look at some of the reviews, because if you remember when we started here, this talk, I said there's two big takeaways. If you remember what those are, we're going to pull them up one more time. These are some of the reviews from people in those 190 countries that I have never met for some of these courses. And I'm just going to paraphrase some of them. Michael has done an amazing job structuring this course so that students alternate between learning important concepts and applying. Michael is a gifted, experienced instructor. I should note that he responds to all of my questions, generously sharing his expertise and knowledge. Thanks, Michael, for making such a great course. Do you notice something there? That person I've never met, probably from Madagascar. And what do you notice about their review? What are they using? They're using my first name. They act as if they know me. That's huge. And if you also notice, I took the time to generously answer all their questions, sharing expertise. Two things right there. I think I said relationships are important and how you use your time is important. And this just goes on and on and on. Using my name, Mike. I like this one. He'll send you on a journey inside an incredibly tight boat, but of course, the rest is up to you. Isn't that a great metaphor for education? Put you on a journey in an incredibly tight boat, but you got to get there. All of these reviews reference me by my first name. These students feel like they have a rapport with me, and they're grateful for the fact that I take the time out to answer any questions they have or any concerns that they have. When I started this, I said, hey, there's two fundamental principles I want to build this on. Time's valuable, and that all learning should be engaging, meaningful, and with purpose. I don't want to waste any student's time. And I think it's evident from the reviews that I'm not. And in order to grow, most people need to be heard, valued, and validated. And I think that I've built the relationships with these students that are all over the world, talking about me as if they know me. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this in the future. I can wake up tomorrow and say, I'm tired of this. I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm going to stop. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying it. So I'm still going to do it. And I already have a couple courses in the works. I have one that I'm prepping right now on networking with sockets programming. So essentially writing programs for two computers to communicate with one another over a network, whether it's like an old school AOL chat room or like a multiplayer game. And then I'm actually designing one on building guitar effects pedals. So for me, that's it's full circle. So I've already got that prepped. I've got overdrive pedals, distortion pedals, fuzz pedals built. I built a nice tremolo pedal. And so I hope to turn it in. Regardless of whatever I choose to do here in the future, these two principles here, they're going to drive whatever decisions I make. Because I think for me, in education, beyond education, in any industry, these two principles, they are kind of like the key to success. All right, I think that is maybe it. Do you guys have any questions?
Let's clap first. And then we can...
Yeah. I got a question for you guys. So you're all physics majors. Have any of you taken computer science classes here? Yeah. Okay. Well, awesome. That's excellent. What languages?
I'm actually pretty sure the textbook that we use for this course is the same one that you bought to start it.
Was it C++ Demystified?
I'm fairly certain. I'd have to double check because I have the online version.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, good. I'm glad that you folks are going in that direction. I think that maybe moving forward, whatever field you're in, these are going to be like being able to write a program to solve a problem is going to be a new prerequisite skill, just like being able to use a computer to send an email or type up a document in Microsoft Word is. You're going to want to know how to do these things. Hugh, I emailed you, and I don't know if you saw it, but if any of you are interested in any of the courses that I have, I give them for free. I gave Hugh a link to them. I made some codes for free coupons. So if you're interested, if you say like, oh, that kind of sounded interesting, I want to learn how to do that, take it, do it for free, and it's all yours. Anything that maybe would help you on that journey. Okay. It's free. Don't let them take your money. Free. $0. Yeah.
Yeah, quick question. So when you started doing the online courses and all that stuff, how many other courses were on, was it Udemy?
Yep. So on Udemy, it's a highly saturated market. And I think that this is one of those things that if I were 5 years earlier, I'd be making a lot more money. I was just late to the game. I would say that if you go on right now, there are tens of thousands of courses that are doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. And so, which is why when I started, I had a really hard time finding any success with it because my course was just getting lost amongst all these other courses, which was when I said, okay, I have to build up some social proof that this is something that's worth taking. And I have to make myself available in such a way that the students feel a relationship and are going to write good reviews. And now that that's happened, I'm definitely nowhere near the top courses, but I'm probably right in the middle, which isn't a bad place to be.
Have you considered maybe like, because I assume not everybody that takes your courses speaks English. So, I mean, I've seen courses or I've seen people that make courses that, maybe hire other people to like dub their courses in a different language.
So one of the things that's great about platforms like Udemy and Pact, they do that work for me.
Oh, that's nice.
So they create the overdubs so that they can sell it to all of those countries, and there's not that language barrier. They take a good portion of my revenue for that, but if I just made my own personal website, it's like, hey, I'm selling courses. No one is going to come through that website. But putting it on Udemy, you're getting billions of people through that website. That exposure is worth the fees of paying.
What you said that you play music. What's like what's your go-to music that you like to play? What's your niche?
Oh man,
Are you using that pyramid?
no, I'm not. Although in the analog electronics course that I made, the culminating project of the course takes a 555 timer and uses it to drive a decade counter. And then that decade counter is used to put varying voltages into another 555 timer. And so essentially what we create is a sequencer. And I can adjust the speed of the musical sequence, and I can adjust the individual pitches of the sequence. And so I've kind of built like the basics of electronic music, which is really fun. The synthesis, the theremin, no, I don't know where that is. The theremin has two circuits. It's got a pitch circuit that you can change the pitch, and then a volume circuit. I never got the volume circuit to work. And the pitch circuit sounded like a dying cat. It was and wasn't worth anything. As far as my own music, at this point where I'm at, I like all genres of music, but if I have to play something, I want to play something that I'm coming up with on my own. So I'll often like to put backing tracks on, or friends if we're playing together, we'll just play some chord progressions and we'll start playing over them. And I think maybe that kind of goes into the it's more organic. It just kind of comes out of nothing, and I like that.
Kind of going back to the classes and stuff, have you ever like considered teaching in other languages? Not in like verbal. but,
Oh,
like,
yeah, absolutely. So when I started with C++, and I, as teaching myself, I said, oh, this is very challenging. And so then I made the switch to Python, which was a much, just from syntax wise, it's a lot easier to wrap my head around. And I was doing mainly functional programming for the longest time. And then once I kind of felt like I had a good feeling for that, I went to Java and I learned some object-oriented programming. And when I taught AP Computer Science A, that was in Java. And I had another course on Android development. And so Android, Google, they allow you to write your applications in either Java, which was the standard for the longest amount of time, but just recently they adopted a new language, Kotlin, as their primary development language. So I've done some stuff in Kotlin too. And yeah, I would definitely consider doing some more classes. I've realized that I think where my niche is scratching the surface on things. So you want to learn the basics of Python, I'm really great at that. You want to learn advanced Python, I might not be your person. You want to learn basic C++, I could probably do that. I could do it really well. You want to learn basic JavaScript, I could do that. I could do it really well.
How did you find new projects to do yourself? That's my biggest issue with personal teaching.
Yeah, that's tough. Because I felt like I was in a rut where I would be trying to learn something and I would either be getting one of two things in terms of like computer science education, trying to teach yourself. These little tiny snippets of code that had no application. Here's a for loop. I can print the numbers 1 through 10. Great. Like, what does that do for me? Or they were these large scale projects where people on YouTube were like typing them away and there's like techno music playing in the background, no one's saying anything. And then they hit run and you're like, wow, that's amazing. But I didn't learn anything. So I think there is a void for, good project-based learning. And really what I did is I just found things that interested me and I said, I'm going to try to do that. And I would just start going through and doing it. And whatever interests you should drive you. So like, what are you interested in?
I'm on the spot. You can give me an answer.
What's your friend interested in?
Am I interested?
Yeah.
Like making models.
You like 3D models for 3D printing?
Yeah.
I wonder if you could write a program. I mean, there's like a lot of graphical libraries. You write a program that will like automate a design process for you. So you can put in some parameters and then it will draw out a 3-dimensional design for you. That's just like a first thought. Like I know one of the projects I got into that really started one of my courses that I'm selling is on GUI development. So like point and click applications. I was teaching projectile motion in physics, and I really wanted something that would demonstrate the parabolic path, and graph it, and show the velocity of objects as they're moving up and down. And I couldn't find anything that I liked. I said, I'm going to make one. And so I went down the road of trying to figure out how to do that, and I learned a ton doing it. And then that spiraled into, well, I'm going to make some more of these graphical user interfaces. And then I got a class to write. So, I think if you can find, if whatever drives you, you're interested in, you're going to keep going at it.
I think we'll leave it there. There seems to have been a lot to think about. Are there any other questions? Great. Was I right in my email that you guys got yesterday?
What are you gonna do?
The one that said Mike is a dynamic and knowledgeable speaker. Do not miss this one.
What email?
You're right when we came to the 8:55 this morning.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know what? Okay, you guys can write something that actually sends out the email when I send it. That's what
Oh, yeah, you could write a program to automatically respond to any email your professors say, and you can say, you got it, thanks, and then send it. That'd be pretty easy.
I wonder, do you remember Peter Anderson?
Yeah, yep.
And I wonder if you ever talked to him about programming, because he was a dual.
Yep, he was a dual major.
And I think his senior year, he hacked the college website to give everyone April Fool's off. I still don't know who did it, but.
Down on the DL.
Is the recording still going?
It is.
I'm gonna stop that so poor Peter doesn't get thrown under the bus.
Yeah, we won't have to have an extra.
All right, let's stop that.
Okay.